Hello all, and welcome to this session focusing on e-learning content development using Agile and Lean design approach. My name is Teemu Patala and I'm the principal and co-founder of Airport College, which offers an online training service for airlines, airport ground handling and logistics. Despite my current role, I've been involved in workplace learning and development since the late 90s in various industries. I'm most focused on learning design and the economics of learning. This presentation will not only cover learning within aviation but highlights my experiences from a number of fields where Agile and Lean type of thinking has been applied in learning design. Before I continue, a couple of words about Airport College. We are the leading provider of online training services for the aviation sector, focusing specifically on what happens around the airport. We offer an all-in-one solution for compliance training of airport staff, including high-quality interactive courses, complete follow-up system with automated competence tracking and certificates. Our content complies with the regulations of aviation authorities, such as IATA and ICAO. We operate globally with representation at over 300 airports, and our offices are located in Helsinki, Finland and Tokyo, Japan. Aviation has been one of the fastest growing industries. The situation we are living in today with coronavirus has hit this industry hard. 9 out of 10 flights have been suspended, and after 2 to 3 months of crisis, companies are looking for ways to return to operations. From learning perspective, the challenge is not only negative, as so many changes are taking place right now, and staff must be able to learn new knowledge and skills to cope with the change. While passenger traffic is nearly non-existent, demand for cargo services has quickly increased. This is heavily disrupting the business, for example by impacting the usage of aircraft fleet and resourcing. Despite the dramatical situation we are in, we are hopeful that the situation will, if not normalize, develop into new normal, which means that most operations can be continued. This means that air travel will continue to increase. The specific challenges in airport environment are that training matters increase too. Much of training is mandatory, and many trainings need to be repeated frequently. Staff turnover is high, as much as 90% per year in some locations. Still, our data shows that employee competencies are critical for service quality. According to a survey from 2018, companies are confronted with skills shortage, and this causes serious problems such as delays in flight schedules and service flaws. Most incidents that cause ground damage occur due to lack of skills. Talking about workplace learning in a more general context, we are in the middle of a transformation process which was started by digitalization over 20 years ago. I can identify a couple of phases during these years which have really boosted this transformation. The financial crisis of 2008 was one of them. And this spring another crisis hit the world that will have permanent impacts as well. We know that automation is changing the way of working. Short-term jobs are becoming a norm, most evidently in blue-collar industries. And the job market is generally quite uncertain. Workforce has become more diverse and mobile. This has many implications in learning and development at workplaces. Demands for new knowledge and skills increase by 20% per year in average. Employees are aware of this and are willing to learn and develop themselves at work. While it's increasingly difficult to understand what knowledge and skills employees need in the near future, we need to come up with responses to learning needs that are diverse, flexible and agile. As learning designers, we need to think how we can reinvent our ways of working to better match with the demand. The principles of Agile and Lean seem ideal, but we have seen very few applications in the learning context so far. These principles are profoundly different than what most learning designers are used to. Instructional design practice is too often founded on linear thinking. This way of production is not flexible nor responsive to changes that are increasingly evident on workplaces. So why Agile and Lean? Many organizations have experimented with these methodologies in other areas than learning. Learning and development, however, is a rather undiscovered area which has huge potential. Educational technology for this is ready and available. Our experiences are from projects in the areas of aviation, healthcare, safety, and language training. We needed to reconfigure a few things to allow application of agile and lean practices in learning design. The production process was not linear but parallel, meaning that project members could work with basically any element of the course when they wanted to. Use of micromodular content structure makes this technically possible. We implemented a couple of cloud-based tools for working with concept design and rapid content development. Maybe the most important aspect was the motivation and commitment of clients to participate in the experiment. The findings from these experiments, which are described in the paper in more detail, include a number of benefits. This way of working increases flexibility of working with content, makes working generally more efficient, increases opportunities to contribute to content creation, and in some cases reported improve the reliability of project outcomes. Some challenges were identified too. An issue I could not emphasize more is the role of strong project management. Once we give project members more opportunities to contribute, we need to be sure they do what they are supposed to do it in the given time frame, and make sure the produced outcomes are finalized and approved appropriately. People work differently, and with added freedom to contribute, it's important to assign people roles and responsibilities they are comfortable with. As always, when work routines are changed, there is the challenge of unlearning from old habits. This is easier for some people, and some will need more support. Let's have a look at the production process, which we reinvented for more agile working. This image shows an example of the traditional linear process in which the main phases of production follow each other. Each phase must be completed and approved before moving forward. The parallel process worked differently. Initial planning is needed for every phase, and it's the responsibility of the lead learning designer to manage the initial planning of each phase with contributions from project members. Then the work continues individually. Project members can access the content using the cloud-based working environment and provide their contributions. Content is split in modules which can advance in different phases. When the content matures enough, the lead learning designer takes charge of finalizing it. This is called the freeze phase. The process is substantially faster as people can focus on modules most relevant to them and also those parts of the course where the source material is first available. Each module that is completed can be published and used independently or eventually as part of the full course. To summarize, based on our experiences so far, Agile and Lean can provide significant added value to learning development. Some adaptation with methodology is needed, however, to make these principles work for learning development purpose. The technological advancements we've seen over the last few years in learning hold a lot of promise to make learning development more agile and efficient. Intelligent technologies such as AI can provide substantial added value to learning, for example in terms of better responses to identified learning needs. To end my presentation, I would like to thank our valued clients and partners for their contributions in these experiments. Without you, we could not have done this. Thank you.
Hello all. Thank you for watching my pre-recorded presentation, and hello from Helsinki to all of you. We decided to do a hybrid presentation, so we recorded some of the material before, and I will continue now my theme focusing on Agile and Lean learning with a slightly different perspective. And this is the startup companies. They represent currently 99% of European businesses, and they provide 2/3 of private sector jobs and contribute to more than half of the total added value created by businesses in the European region. And where I live in Finland, the small business sector is actually driving industrial development and innovation at the moment. They are shaping the future of our economy. And as the first part of my presentation pointed out, Agile and Lean principles can provide significant added value to learning content development. But if we forget the world of learning content production for a moment and look at small companies, learning agility is actually becoming a critical strategic factor for these companies. It's a matter of life and death. And I'm going to explain why. There are two main reasons. Ability to learn from clients and the market seem to be the most critical success factors of a startup company. In a startup, the product or service is often new for customers, and the business model is not yet established in the market. So they are developing something totally new, or it's new for that specific market they are entering. Startups need to translate their observations and findings concerning customer behavior and the emerging market to new actions of business development. This is an agile strategic learning process as startup teams reflect their experiences towards their existing thinking models and reframe them based on the new information about markets. So they are learning all the time. And this is an integral part of their working. We are currently involved in a cooperative which focuses on understanding agile strategic learning as a process in startup companies. So, and based on the work done so far, we understand agile strategic learning as a process where the startup teams rapidly experiment new things, aiming to learn and test existing beliefs, plans, and models. And one concrete way to do this is by using a prototype or a minimum viable product. And that is a minimalist construction of the service or product the company is offering. It's something concrete enough for the customers to or users to experience the service or product which they are developing. And this means that companies need to rethink their learning strategies. This brings us to the point of lean thinking in learning from client experience. The lean startup methodology is founded on lean learning to fail fast. So it aims to supposedly eliminate wasted time and resources to develop a product iteratively and incrementally. So these working teams actually celebrate failures as they provide them critical insights on how to improve. We've seen a number of successful companies applying these approaches, and they are indeed creating a competitive advantage for them. And the same is actually happening in larger companies to some extent already. And when HR managers were asked about their top priorities in learning and development, they first raised the issue of identification and assessment of skill gaps of employees with regard to achieving business objectives. So to understand skills demands, the company needs to first understand market demands, which are changing, and sometimes this change happens quite rapidly. So I'm quite sure that in the coming years, we will see a lot happening in this front, and this will open some really interesting opportunities for us learning developers. What we are most interested to learn next is how this kind of learning can be supported with the use of technology, learning data, and intelligence systems. Another important part of exploration is how this learning that takes place in close client interaction can develop into strategic intelligent capacity of the company. Systems that enable collection, procession, and enrichment of this knowledge into collective knowledge of the company will be needed. And this brings us to the second point I made about the criticality of agile and lean principles in workplace learning. When we look at the availability of learning tools designed for workplaces, it's amazing how few dedicated systems there are for micro-sized organizations. And I'm not only talking about the functionality and fit for purpose, but also licensing models which are typically established for large masses of users. The open source segment is of course an opportunity, but for a startup company, it's a very challenging model to work on, as their core business typically takes 100% or maybe 120% of their resources already. So time to develop something for learning might not be there. On the side of my main responsibilities, I've also done a lot of business coaching and mentoring. And having worked with nearly 100 small businesses around the world, I've realized how difficult it is for a small company to step into the world of online learning. Self-development of employees is, of course, the easy part. I mean, one can take any course online using any of the many services there are these days. But it gets really complicated when a custom-developed learning solution is needed, be it for employees, partners, or customers. I saw some statistics that 90% of all corporate training programs fail to make the impact they are intended to make. It's a little bit worrying. But I believe this is something where Agile principles can make a big difference. Instead of making your learning development project a massive effort, we could base learning development on our timely understanding about market demands and fail small time and do it so many times we need to do until we find the right path and develop something that is really, really useful. So I just wanted to share some additional insights from our work on Agile and Lean learning, and I want to underline that this is only the start. We are exploring this front, but noting how things are evolving in the world at the moment, I believe it will be increasingly important to understand and apply these principles in learning, design, and development. So we're going to continue our work. Thank you for this, and I hope to have some questions and discussion on this.
Great. Well, thank you, Teemu. Thank you so much. And yeah, there definitely seems to be a role for Agile methodology. I'm interested to hear more about it. There's time for Q&A, so we do have another 10 minutes for questions if people have questions in the chat. And so I guess in the meantime, if you can speak a little bit, suppose someone's in an organization and they've heard about the Agile methodology, they're curious about it. They kind of have a sense that this could help them do things maybe a little bit better or differently, but they're not sure where to start. Are there some things you could give people as kind of some starter ideas, either where to look or what to think about as they maybe think about putting this into place?
Okay, Agile and Lean are of course more familiar from the world of ICT and things like that. There's plenty of information on this concept and methodologies online if you Google, but when applied for learning, I wouldn't really go by the book as they are done there. We didn't actually take Agile or Lean purposely as a methodology and applied it in our project just like that. I think our whole organization of learning developers is very open to innovation, and we always question our ways of working. So agility is part of this mentality, and so this initially came as an idea to change some elements in our work process. And then there was some technology that we started using which enabled this kind of working. So then we just realized that we have pretty much flipped the process, or at least part of it, and we saw it's working quite well. And then we did a little bit of survey to understand what is happening. We surveyed our clients and people involved, and realized that we have something really, really valuable here. And Agile and Lean are often mixed as concepts, and for us, Lean rather represents the idea to reduce any waste we can in our work with subject matter experts. So if you follow the linear way of working, which is I think quite typical in instructional design, you end up doing things that you wouldn't probably do when working with in a little bit more agile way. So if you focus on bits and pieces that you have available and have the best potential to become complete, you end up saving a lot of time, and actually the end result can be better as well.
Great, thanks. And we do have a question from Christina, who says that if she remembers correctly, you had mentioned a language learning pilot in the Middle East, pilot project in the video presentation. So if she has this right, could you elaborate a little bit about this, about that project, and how Lean and Agile fit in, and the context in which this took place?
Pretty much in the same way as in any other learning domain. What we did, we were working with university, and traditionally there is a separation in this kind of organization where they have the technical and they have the academic stuff, and we saw that this way that they had been using to develop language learning courses was not really efficient. So what we did, we implemented online tool, working environment, and pretty much forced these people to come together online and work on the content. And of course, there's a little bit of unlearning to do, and also some organization culture issues that we had to overcome. But eventually, things started working out really well. So it's more about our fears and unwillingness to change than something else, anything else. So that was the experience.
All right. Thanks. We have
So I would just go ahead and try. I mean, and technology is really helpful these days. So 5-10 years ago, we didn't have these opportunities as we have now.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Let me ask a different question that came from Patrick Bloom from Germany, a longtime speaker and contributor to our conference as well. Do you really work agile? He asks, meaning that the results of the processes are not fixed, and if so, how do your internal customers respond to this way of working?
As I said, we don't. We don't take it as it is. What we adapt it for learning development purpose, and it means that we have to give away with some principles that are quite strict in Agile. And if you have a look at my paper, you'll find some additional information on that. I would also be happy to share something on that. So if you're interested, contact me. I will share, and we can discuss more. It's a different approach, a little bit different approach than for example, as applied in ICT development.
Do you find I know you mentioned this a couple of times, that the flexibility is in a lot of ways a challenge. You want to move quickly, you want to be able to change things, but as you mentioned, and we kind of just said, the education and training are fairly rigid fields in certain ways. People are used to doing things exhaustively and walking through processes. This is a change for them. So I know, can you speak a little bit? You already have actually just spoken about the challenges that your face says it all, but yes, can you speak into more detail about some of those challenges?
Yeah, you're right. It's always quite challenging to not give away those elements of working, which are the strengths in the traditional ways of working with learning development, but I think one of the most positive aspects of this was that we were able to engage much more people in this process than we could done earlier, and that was thanks to this online environment that we're using. It seems that some people are more active when working online than face to face, and this is of course a culture specific matter, and it may change in different areas and different cultures, but our experience from these projects are very good in this regard. So people are much more active as they learned how to work in this project, and I want to underline the role of project management. It's more important than when people are working face to face, and that's why we came up with this new process, and I tried to describe it in the material, that you have to, when you give that freedom to people to play around with content, then you have to have a clear milestone and that freeze moment when you intervene and the learning designer puts those pieces together which are not there yet. So you need to have that restructuring moment at some point.
Right. You kind of need to have, people need their creative freedom, at least in my experience, but then at some point you have to decide, what you're going to move ahead and do. And I mean, I've always found that's the right way to do things, that there's a danger in doing things in too constrained a way, and that you end up with very simplistic learning experiences that don't really help people all that much. So you may check off every box in the content, the list of content, but it doesn't really get you anywhere. And so, but you do have people coming from different perspectives, and there's both a practical challenge of, well, at some point you actually have to create something. you have to decide what it is you're going to do and do it. And also just the different perspectives of people coming from different backgrounds, which is certainly a big thing as well. Great. Well, yeah. All right. Well, I think we are probably just at the moment at the end. So I'm going to thank you, Teemu. Thank you once again for your mixed media presentation. It was a lot of fun to be part of it.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it, and looking forward to a very good conference.
All right. Thanks again. Glad you're going to be sticking around, and we'll look for you. We'll look for you in the chat, since it's the only place we can look for you. But I know people can reach out and read your paper and send comments to you as well. So looking forward to that. Terrific. All right. Thanks again. I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you.